All right, welcome back to the Bachelor Life Coach podcast. I'm your host, certified life coach Lynn Grogan, and with me today I have very special guest, certified life coach Kristen McClellan. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Good. How are you, Lynn?
Good. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Kristen McClellan. I'm a certified life coach. I also have a master's degree in psychology, and I help social media influencers reduce their anxiety. These are high function. Oh,
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
These are high functioning women. They're very successful and they want relief from their anxiety. And I kind of call it like anxiety behind a smile. It's for women that are high achieving, they're very successful, everything looks great on the outside, but inside they're really struggling and feel like they're falling apart and they're just anxious every day and they're smart enough to know that there's a better way to live. And so I help them do that.
Which is amazing because basically every single woman on the show could be your client.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I can't wait to pick your brain on this just because in watching this, I was like, oh my gosh, Kristen is the perfect guest to have on here based on that. And so you're going to have so many good insights. I just know it.
Yes, almost every line they said, I wanted to write down and coach on. There were so many coachable moments that could help these guys so much.
I know. I know. It's just getting worse as we go on, too.
If they only knew. I know, and it's going to get, just as you go on, it gets more intense. It's going to get even more coachable, which is awesome news for you and me.
Awesome for all of us, right?
Yeah, for
Um,
everyone.
so I'm going to go ahead and do a brief show recap, which actually isn't quite so brief since so much happened on this 3-hour episode. Um, so we start out with the cliffhanger where they're at the cocktail ceremony and Peter takes Alea to the side. And despite having given her a rose, she ends up going home, which I felt was mutual. Did you get that sense too, that she was just ready to go?
I guess the whole thing, the whole time I'm thinking, Peter, do you not have sisters? Have you never dated women before? Like, I could just watch him literally like dig himself this huge giant hole. I was so nervous for him.
I know. So she goes away. And then they line up for the rose ceremony, and he sends home Deandra, Kiara, and Savannah. Then they go from Cleveland to Costa Rica, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say this. I actually thought that Costa Rica was an island. And then they showed the picture of where it was. And I was like, not an island. It made me feel a little bit dumb. You probably knew it was not an
I
island.
love it.
And then Peter rolls in. Everybody gets there. Peter rolls in with this massive head wound, which he tells them is from a puma, but it's really from a golf cart.
And did you
Um,
buy into the Puma? Because the whole time I'm like,
no.
Peter, Pilot Pete, the Puma would have eaten you for lunch, but
I know. I was like, oh, we wouldn't have a show anymore. And then for sure we would have amazing footage of that. But yeah, no,
right.
I didn't. A lot of the girls did. And
They
but
were
not
all
for
a good.
long. They're all into it.
Hmm.
And then from there, he takes Sydney on a one-on-one date where she opens up to Peter about her bullying in the past and she gets a rose. Um, from there, we have a group date by a waterfall. It's a Cosmo modeling competition. Victoria wins the cover shoot, but ultimately, after a very, very, very dramatic cocktail party, um, Hannah Ann gets the group date rose. But we'll definitely talk about that drama in a little bit.
Hmm.
We move on to a one-on-one date with Kelly, where Peter's really interested in testing her commitment to the process. They visit a shaman, and she, I guess, just tells Peter, like, yeah, for sure, I trust this process. Yeah, let's keep going. I'm not convinced. I don't think he's convinced, but he gives her a rose anyway. I don't know. What did you think? Did you get
Yeah,
a sense?
she's so low key about it. Even some of her commentary, like, I'm just in Costa Rica, so I'm just going to have fun. I mean, seems very like almost neutral and
Yes.
very calm about the process. Like, maybe I'll get a good dinner out of the deal. Costa Rica's pretty. I don't know. I like to travel. I've been to 26 countries. I mean, she doesn't
I
even really
know.
talk about Peter in the commentary they show at all.
Oh, no, she's like, "I'm tired.
Yeah.
This is cool. I don't know." But she
Yes.
gets a rose. She's gonna stay. And then a little bit later, Kelsey goes to see Peter in secret, and she gets a rose.
Love it.
Woo, I know. And then a little bit later, Chris Harrison comes in to tell everybody that the cocktail party has been canceled because Peter has some clarity he didn't have earlier in the day. And because of this, all the girls blame Kelsey for this, because they put two and two together. She visited him, cocktail party canceled. Um, and then from there, Peter ends up cutting Lexi and Shan.
Mhm.
And that's it. That's a crazy episode. I wanted to, yeah. So before we jump into the coachable moments, I want to mention that if you want to help pick the next moments from next week, you'll go over to my Instagram account at Lingrogan. I can't speak today. And then comment on the post that says, what should we coach on this week? So I had a couple people again. We had Kelly Shipley again, Janet Cagle, and Fit Mama Jama. I didn't catch her name that offered suggestions this week. So thank you everyone for those. Kristen, are you ready to coach?
Yeah, let's do it, girl.
Let's do it. All right. So I'm
Coaching
going
hat on.
to, a coaching hat on. I know, shift focus. I'm like, we could still be a little snarky, but there might be some coaching that we can fit in between. So let's just talk about something that was sprinkled out through the whole episode of, well, actually the last several episodes, but McKenna and her self-doubt seems to be a recurring theme on the show. We keep on getting clips of her where McKenna's pretty convinced that if she just had 5 more minutes with Peter, he would see her and how amazing she is. But until then, she has no security and she's in self-doubt. And I just feel for her because it's like every other line, the poor thing has probably other things to say than I'm freaking out about this. But I mean, some of these key lines are just like, if I can just like knock down my walls and really feel like Peter, I wrote that wrong. Okay. So I feel like Peter hasn't seen who I am yet, and I want him to see that. That's why I want to get time with him tonight. So she's constantly thinking if she just has a little bit more time, that Peter will just fall magically in love with her, and then she can fall in love with him. And then we have this perfect like Cinderella story, end of scene. Like, what did you think about this?
Well, the 5 minute thing, what is the 5 minute thing? Is 5 minutes like the magic number for her to tell him why she's so amazing? Like, I just need 5 minutes with him because tonight was going to be big. Remember, she kept talking about how tonight was going to be so big. So I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting that there's a time limit on it. It's not like I need like this or this. It's like I just need 5 minutes to hurry and convince him that I'm amazing and he should keep me.
Totally. Yeah. And just like, what are you going to do in that 5 minutes that's going to show him what you haven't shown him already? Because I've seen what she can do with 5 minutes and it involves only dancing with wine in her hand. Did you
And
notice that?
sparkles, 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 lots
And
of
the
glitter on
sparkles.
her. But yeah, it's totally coming from a lack and scarcity mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have enough time. I don't have self-doubt. Self-doubt is a total indulgent emotion that we don't ever even need, right? It does nothing for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the more she indulges in this doubt, the more that she goes to that, um, she's not getting any sort of result from being in that place. Mostly she's just showing up as this person that doesn't actually believe that anything good can happen for her.
Right.
And
Right.
then we see her not spending any time with her.
Well,
Like,
and when you think about the energy too that she's wasting on the drama, and she thinks Peter's so caught up in the drama, but really she's the one that's wasting all her time and brain energy and thoughts in the drama.
yeah. Yeah. And what I thought was interesting about this is right before this cocktail ceremony, she's like, I have the perfect thing. And now I need to tell Peter. Like, did you catch that? I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this perfect thing? It was like she was spinning in her head over and over again. Like, I need to have something. I need to have something. I need to have something. Like, there's going to be this perfect thing. And then everything will come together. Like
And
something's just going to come together at the last minute. And then they will fall magically in love with each other.
yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what she said, like tonight was going to be big for me. And
Yeah.
now I've lost it.
Yeah.
And it's other people that are ruining my possibility of having a chance with him,
Totally. Like
not
if you
herself.
had a client that came to you basically telling you like I've been dating this guy, but I'm freaking out about it, super anxious about it, feeling a lot of self-doubt about it. Like how would you coach her through this?
Oh, I love that question. So, when we feel anxious, that is a feeling. One of the first things we teach clients that we were taught at the school is to teach them awareness. Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And so, if we wanted to start with her feeling like I'm just feeling anxious, we would backtrack it to her thought, like, what is making you feel anxious? And she might think it's her relationship, but really it's just her thoughts about her relationships that is making her feel anxious.
Yeah. And what do you think some of her thoughts are?
Um, well, we know some of them, right? Like she's feeling self-doubt, she's feeling lack of confidence, she's feeling a lack of abilities to make Peter fall in love with her ability to say the right thing, lack of time. And I think the 5 minutes has to do with she doesn't need an hour or 2 hours or a week or a month with Peter. She just needs 5 minutes. And so I think that too is kind of the scarcity of like, it just takes 5 minutes and then he can fall in love with me,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because then we see her at the very end of the episode when the cocktail party has been canceled. First, Tammy goes to talk to Peter, and then she's just like, "This is it. I have to do it," because she believes very much in her mind that's like something needs to happen outside of her that's going to prove to Peter and to herself that this love exists and that he should keep her there. And I don't know if that was the impetus for him to keep her on the show or not. But certainly, we've seen lots of examples where Peter reacts to whoever's in front of him. So maybe that was it.
Yeah.
But my guess is that that's basically just giving her evidence that if she does steal Peter, if she does have time with him, that she gets what she wants. So I don't think that that's helped her much in her mindset because here she has some evidence that like this has worked for her.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I have to say, my hat is off to the women that are breaking the rules. I
Mm,
mean, right? You've got a million cameras on you. I try to put myself in the position you've got a million cameras on you, and you're like, I don't care what the rules are. I'm making my way. I'm going to think outside the box. I'm going after it, knowing that the girls you're leaving behind you want to scratch your eyes out. And so
right.
I actually appreciated her confidence in that moment to be like, I don't care what the rules are. I am going to fight for what I want. And these girls can all hate me. She knew what she was going to go back to,
Oh,
but she
totally.
still had, kind of the mentality like, I'm going to think outside the box and I'm breaking the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one moment where she just kind of stood up and just went like, okay, it's time to put my money where my mouth is. I've been saying this whole time. I need some time with Peter. I need 5 minutes. I'm going to go take my time.
She kind of
Um,
created the time, right?
she did create the time. It was the first time probably in the whole season where she advocated in herself in that way. Um, so
Agreed.
something worked in that moment where she got out of like the self-doubt and she propelled herself forward. Not quite sure like what changed there.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah, but
Whether it
surely
came
some sort of thought.
right, and whether it came from a clean place, and when I say clean place, whether it came from like confidence and I'm falling in love, or it came from like desperation, I have to whatever it came from. But interesting
Mm,
that she was willing to think outside the box, and it'd be interesting to know what emotion drove her actions because
yeah.
we our feelings always drive how we behave,
Right, right. So it definitely was a feeling other than self-doubt because that wouldn't have had her walking across the room,
right?
interrupting his conversation with Tammy. So, I mean, that was one moment where I was like, okay, McKenna's doing this. She's not just going to sit here and complain and be in doubt about this. She's actually going to move forward.
Took
Um,
action.
so yeah, hats off for her finally figuring that out. So, should
Go
we move
McKenna.
to number two?
Yeah, so let's see. Number 2. So this is when Peter takes Sydney, who is gorgeous, by the way.
Right?
Oh my gosh. So beautiful. He takes her on a day in a helicopter. The one-on-one, you have a target on your back instantly when the card comes in and you've got one-on-one, right? They're in Costa Rica. Like before they were in Cleveland, no one wants to go on a date in Cleveland. Everyone wants to go on a helicopter ride in Costa
Yes.
Rica, right? So instantly everyone hates Sydney because she's going on a date.
Right.
Kelsey, particularly, who we've seen really get a lot of attention because the crazier you act, the more attention you're going to get, right? The more TV time you're going to get. And
Yeah.
so we see Kelsey cry for several hours over Sydney going on a date because she was the one that had the last one on one. She felt like she had a great connection. And now all of a sudden, this beautiful girl is taking off in this beautiful romantic setting in a helicopter, and they're like at the pool waving to
Yes.
Sydney.
And Kelsey claims that it's not Sydney, it would have been anyone, but who knows?
Right, right, and that's true. I mean, I think it could be true. When you get that one-on-one date card, I think instantly everyone hates you, even if it's not because of who you are, but what you get to do.
Totally. Yeah, especially Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, which apparently isn't an island.
I'm going to get some crap for that one for sure. And
So,
then,
Tammy goes over to Kelsey, and Kelsey is crying and she's drinking. We're not sure how much wine she's had, but she is obviously drinking. We see the wine in her hand, and she's acting a little bit, just really has a lot of emotions going on. And I love that Tammy goes over and is like, "Hey, girl, just want to make sure you're okay." And then she proceeds to say, Kelsey is a hot mess. She's been crying for weeks. She cried over a champagne bottle for 4 days. I didn't even cry this much when my grandfather died. Like, I mean, she just goes on and on and on about if Peter knew how crazy she was, he would send her home. She's emotionally unstable. So she goes and acts like this towards Kelsey and then comes back to the girls and just goes off about her,
Oh, totally. It's
which
like, yeah, go ahead.
well, just so interesting. She starts out like, I just went over to see if she was okay. What do you,
Right? Oh my gosh. I was just like, Tammy, like you didn't want to see if she was okay. You were just bored. And
yeah,
then you were just going to see, like, sniff out the drama.
for
Like,
sure. Cause
that
she's
was my sense.
crying.
Yes.
She's drank wine or whatever. Someone had mentioned she pill popped. So, I mean,
Who
exactly. Tammy went
knows?
over to be like, how can I ruffle feathers? How can I get things? What can I get on her? I think.
Totally. And if we're talking, I mean, I think for Tammy, her limits, like McKenna is 5 minutes. Like, I think she was good for 5 minutes of Kelsey crying, but when it went on for a purportedly 3 hours,
3 hours.
yes,
Right.
that's when
Right.
Tammy was just like, listen, you're not handling this well at all. She totally has this idea about how people in the house should be processing their emotion and handling things. And because everyone was left behind, only one person went on the one-on-one date, everyone left behind, and Kelsey was the only one crying. Therefore, by default, Kelsey is doing it wrong. And Tammy is there to set this record straight and tell her what she should do right.
Right. Which is so fascinating, right? Why does Tammy care how Kelsey processes her emotions?
That's what I couldn't figure out. But I mean, really, basically, Tammy wants Kelsey to stop crying so that she can feel better. So she just is like, I want some peace and quiet. And you're doing this all wrong.
You're doing this all wrong. You're psycho. You're crazy. And as a side
Mm,
note, I couldn't help but notice that Kelsey thinks she's processing her emotions,
right.
right? And really, Kelsey is acting like a child. Like she's acting like a toddler. She's throwing a fit. She's yelling. She's uncontrollable. She's drinking. Really, she's avoiding her emotions. She thinks
Hmm.
she's processing them. But I go through this with clients about anxiety. To process an emotion, to process anxiety or sadness or whatever we're feeling, that can be done sitting quietly in a chair.
Yeah.
When we process something, it's just a vibration in our body.
Yeah.
Emotion is just something we feel in our body. And so it doesn't, when we process an emotion, it doesn't mean we react to it by drinking, yelling, screaming, dropping the F bomb, whatever else went on with that. And it doesn't even necessarily mean we cry. And not that crying is terrible and bad, but still crying is acting out your emotion.
Yeah.
So I love to teach clients, and I've found it super helpful for people and for those at home. When you're really processing an emotion as an adult, you can do it sitting in a chair
Yeah. You
because
could totally do it sitting in the chair. I mean, or as Natasha, one of the contestants, offered, like writing in a journal, like looking at it
yes,
that way. I
yes,
think what was key here is that there's no one right way. Like, I would also agree with you that Kelsey thinks she's processing emotions, but it's really doing a lot of reacting, a lot of indulging,
right,
a lot of, I'm guessing, assuming that other people are causing how she feels. Like her not knowing the status of everyone else's relationship is causing this emotional meltdown, but not anything about like what's going on in her mind. Um, but everyone processes differently. And it's not for someone like Tammy or Kelsey or Natasha to say who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong.
right,
You know, the only indication is how you feel in your body. And we can see Kelsey is all of the flavors of emotions, or my
right.
guess. She's getting all of them.
But as she's using alcohol to put
Mm,
that barrier with how she's feeling, right? It's the same thing we do with food. You work with weight loss clients,
I
right?
do. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that and how that relates. using food to not feel emotions.
Right? I mean, it's just numbing everything out. So you think you're feeling better because you're eating the ice cream, but really, like that anxiety or the sadness or whatever you were feeling before you ate the ice cream is still there. It's waiting for you, but now
Right.
you just can't feel it anymore because you have this insane sugar high and it's
Right.
distracting you. So, I mean, essentially, her wine was distracting her from her sadness, but it didn't mean that it went away
Right. It was
and it was
still
still
there to
there.
deal with. It
Hmm.
just like you said, like the ice cream, you kind of numb it for a little bit. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was a great point for everyone to understand that when we really do truly process our emotions, it doesn't need to be this big dramatic thing. It doesn't even
Yeah.
need to be crying. It can be, but using alcohol or food or things like that, it just kind of numbs and helps you for a minute. And then when the ice cream's gone or the alcohol isn't
Mhm.
in effect anymore, you're still left to deal with how you feel about Sydney going on the one-on-one date.
Well, and totally. And we see that the whole episode. Like, it's
Yes.
not like Kelsey was like, oh, I process it now. I feel better. I can move forward in my relationship. We just kind of see this downhill spiral for her.
Right.
Um, and there's still turbulence to the very end. And so, I mean, and for her, we see her repeatedly thinking, like, oh, if I go see Peter, I get the validation I need, then I feel better. If I do this, this happens, and then I feel better. Always
Mhm.
something external to her. Um, and so I think I would argue that like probably not very many of them do know how to process their emotions. And what's interesting about it is just like here they are in a situation, probably their only buffer, their only thing that they can have to numb it out is alcohol or food. But
I
they,
thought of that too. Their phones are
yeah,
taken away, social media is taken away, some of the other things.
any sort of freedom to leave,
Right. Yeah.
right? Because most of these women, I mean, come on, Kelly the lawyer, she would have been out of there like, I'm going to go to the coffee shop and I'll come back later for the rose ceremony.
Right.
But instead, I mean, and granted, I can't say that not all of them know how to process emotions because the only ones we see are the ones on screen that are having a lot of attention getting moments.
Well, I thought Natasha kind of gave us a little insight there where she's
Yeah,
like, I journaled it and I went off with myself. And I thought, that sounds like more of what really processing emotion is. And in everyone's defense, I mean, before this work, I didn't understand how to process
totally.
emotions. I just would eat or over this or over that. I mean, that we have all these pleasure things in the world that promote go shopping, get on social media,
Mhm.
compare yourself, eat some ice cream, run to the drive through, whatever. And so it's just the natural man to not understand this. It's not taught.
It's
That's
not
why we
taught.
teach it, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think especially for all of these women are basically digital natives. Like they grew up with a cell phone within reach. And so for you and I, who probably did not have that, I didn't at least, I can't speak for you, Kristen. Um, like the challengers I feel like are even more prominent, especially like they were exposed to ads probably a lot earlier. I mean, we had like 3 channels on my
Mm.
TV growing up, so it's like, did I see a lot of commercials? Yeah, but not as many as like we get now today. And so we're even further away from being able to process our emotions and
Oh,
figure them
there's
out.
so much at your fingertip to buffer with, right?
Oh,
Click,
so
click,
much.
click. I mean, just so much. Now we have DoorDash. I mean, you can have food to your house. It's just so convenient. It's something that we have to learn
Yeah.
to not
Yeah.
do anymore. I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's interesting is at the beginning of this episode, a few of them were saying, like, yay, we're going to Costa Rica. We can leave the drama behind us, thinking that it was Cleveland or California that was causing the drama. But no, it's going with you guys
Your brain follows you. So if
everywhere.
you're going to Costa Rica and you think there's drama, then drama comes to Costa Rica. Your thoughts come with you.
Always,
Exactly right.
always. Yeah, and so I think, this is something again, I mean, I think all of the themes that we're talking about today go with us the entire episode. So we
Yes.
definitely see more altercations with first Tammy and Kelsey, and then Sydney gets involved, and then I think McKenna gets involved. And so I think we're seeing a lot of stress response and this is the only release that a lot of them have. I mean, we have people like Natasha who are journaling. We don't see her acting out in many of these ways, but I think for the rest of the people, they don't really have much of an outlet. They don't have anything really to distract them. And so the people around them become the way that they release their emotions.
Right. They react, they act out to them.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Whew. Shall we move on to number 3?
Do it.
Yeah, all right. So Peter takes Kelly on on a one-on-one date. So this is the second one of the episode. And he expresses before the day that he's like not really sure where he's at with her. And he makes an interesting demand. He says, I need to see a lot from her today because his impression of how women should act on the show, from what I can see, is they need to be giving to him. They need to be open and vulnerable, and they need to be sharing their stories and all of this.
50-50. He wants 50-50, whatever that means.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, he thinks he's giving 75 and she's giving 25.
Mhm.
Um, and he kind of feels like she's not trying at all.
Mhm.
So rather than a date to get to know her more, I got more of the impression that this was almost a trial. Like,
Yeah.
let's see what you can give. Let's see if I should keep you. Did you get that impression too?
Yes, and I thought the word "a lot" was super interesting because it
Mm.
revealed that what does Peter even want from her? Right?
Yeah.
How many of us in our life are like, I just want him to make me happier. I just want her to give a lot. Like, I don't even think Peter knows what a lot means. And then he's expecting Kelly to fulfill the a lot of I'm not sure he even knows what it is.
No, I know, because he starts it out being like, she's everything that I would want. She loves to travel. She's close to her family. She's super successful. She loves her career. And then he's like, but I need more. More of what
A lot.
exactly? Which is what you're saying. He needs that a lot. Um, and we can see his insecurities coming out here because he feels super secure in his relationship with Kelsey, who may or may not be great for him. But it's because Kelsey has been expressing this whole time, I'm falling in love with you. This is all working out for me. She's really into the process of getting there. And we see Kelly kind of sitting back going, I don't know about this. Like, I'm not sure if this is for me. I was thinking back in Cleveland, I should maybe go home. And now she's like, yeah, I might be open to this. We're going to foreign countries. I like to travel. Um,
Right.
so I just thought this was so interesting too. Did you pick up on this beforehand? Kelly would seem kind of nervous to go on this one-on-one date, and she's saying like, I don't really have this sob story to share or this something deeper. And I think that's what Peter is wanting, is this something deeper, this vulnerable moment. And Kelly's just like, dude, I barely know you. Why would I tell you all the things? That's the impression I got. She's just like, there's nothing. It's not.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think Kelly basically was saying like I don't have anything super dramatic that's going to make me cry and is going to make the other girls mad and is going to like woo Peter. Like I'm just me and I think you're exactly right. Like what does Peter want? The a lot is that like, hey, tell me your worst experience in your life and cry about it, or I just think Kelly doesn't have enough drama to stay on the show.
No, I know. Well, and I think she has such a good point when they're at the evening portion of their date, when she tells him like, "Hey, I haven't had the opportunity to even get to know you because you've been here rewarding all the drama." And you could see this like flash of like across his face. I don't even know what emotion that was. Where it's like this recognition of, okay, maybe she's right. But
Yeah,
I think she is right. Like, she's just like, listen, I'm not here to like push girls out of the way and create drama. I mean, maybe she did a little bit in that first episode when she, broke the rules on the date. I don't know. But here she's just like, okay, listen, you're distracted. I don't even think you're looking for a wife. So why should I show up and pretend like I'm looking for a husband if you're not that guy? So she
right.
challenges him so much in this.
Yes. Yes. And
Um,
it felt like a maturity level difference where she's
mhm.
like, I don't even think you're ready to do because you love the drama. You don't want anyone to be mad at you. You want to pull people back, give people, I mean, you're not even decisive on what you want.
Yeah. And I mean, part of me is just like, man, Kelly, maybe you just like clearly maybe just need to walk away from this because I don't get the impression that he's finding a wife by the end of this. He thinks he is. I think he's seriously misguided here.
Yes, I agree. And if you watch his body language, I love watching people's body language. If you watch his body language, he's just exhausted. Don't you think? Like his
Hmm.
poor eyes and he's sweating all the time. And I think he's just exhausted.
I think so too. And I also wonder if part of this is like the producers beforehand saying, hey, Peter, why don't you ask her X, Y, and Z? And
Right.
wanting to get the story.
Right.
Because their job is to make good TV. His job is to find a wife. And Kelly's just like, I'm just here for fun.
Kelly.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So
So
good.
yeah, I just think here there's two people that are playing roles. I don't get the impression that this is going to go anywhere. He gives her the rose. I don't know why. Why do you think he gave her the rose at this one?
I don't know if, like you mentioned, there was a moment where he was kind of like, had like some emotional adulthood where he was like taking on responsibility for what he'd done, how he feels, things like that. If he kind of had a glimpse of like, you're right. And like you said, maybe she challenges him. And really, we know and we teach that relationships are just our thoughts about other people, right?
Yeah.
So his thoughts about his relationship with Kelly are just his thoughts, which create his relationship. And so I almost feel like he had a moment of kind of like, maybe she's right. Like, she's kind of making me think outside the box a little bit, and I'm going to keep her around.
Yeah. I think in that moment he was also like, I don't have any strong reasons not to keep her around. Like I could keep her, I could not keep her. We'll just keep going forward.
Right. And I think she feels the same way. Like, I can stay. I like travel. I like the food.
Yeah. It's like they've had like a solid first or second date and both of them are kind of lukewarm and they're like, yeah, we
Mhm.
could go on a third date. I
Mhm.
feel like this is third dating her by giving her the rose.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other women, I think he's thinking more into the future. But here he's just like, oh, I'll just keep you around for the next ceremony and see what happens.
Right.
Yeah. Well, good for him. Like at least he's keeping somebody around that is a stark contrast to everything else.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. Way
Yeah.
to way to stay around, Kelly. I like it.
I do too. It's probably she's like the most adult out of all of them. Her and Natasha. I'm like, okay, we have some adults in the room. Somebody is chaperoning this mess.
That's why I think they won't make it. That's another one where I'm like, she's not dramatic enough
I know. I
for
know.
the whole situation. I mean, when you apply, I think you need to be like ready to be dramatic, or I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if you'll want to stay.
Right.
Like Kelly, then you're just kind of lukewarm.
Well, and it's interesting because I'm like, I don't really see her being a social like media influencer after this. I mean, she's gonna go back to being a lawyer. And so I think
Right.
for her, it's just sort of this quirky adventure that's so different than her daily life. But
Yes.
she's not gonna put on this act that he's looking for. Like, basically, he's asking her to perform, like, "I need to see a lot from her today," and she's like, "Oh, listen, I'm not gonna do this whole song and dance for you. Either take it or leave it. If you want me to go home, fine. It's been a fun adventure." And I
Right.
think that confuses him a lot, and that confusion because when he gets confused, he basically keeps people around.
Yeah,
So,
he kind of panics. Right.
I think he panicked and kept her.
Yeah. It'll
We'll
be interesting to
see.
see, but I don't think Kelly's staying.
No, I don't think so either. Womp womp. Uh,
Bye, Kelly.
should we move on to number 4?
Yes. Okay. So this is when Peter, um, this is when Kelsey sneaks over, which again, I love the rule breaking. Like,
Mm.
they know what they want. They're going to try to go after it. They don't care if it's breaking the rules or not. She goes over and he gives her a rose. She tells him like, "Hey, Tammy told you all these things." Like, I'm trying to think of some lines that she says. Like, "I want to be here." What does he say? Tell me what he says. She says.
I mean, they just have that whole conversation about how, yes, all the things people are saying has happened, which I think
Right.
she's learned from other people's examples, like Alea, deny, deny, deny everything that happened. And so Kelsey's like, yeah, I cried, I drank wine, Tammy and I had a kerfuffle. Like all of those things happened. It's true. But at the same time, this has been hard for me. This is a struggle. And I just wanted you to know that so you don't cut me thinking that I'm just stirring up drama. I'm just expressing the struggle. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what was going on there. I thought it was a good strategy personally because Peter does react to basically the last person in front of him. Is like so tired, such a short attention span. Maybe would think differently if it was a different situation, but really he's just like, she seems to want to be here, so here's a rose.
Well, and I think again, like you said, smart on her part because hello, every second, unless maybe you're hiding in the bathroom, is recorded. So if you
Totally.
go and lie to Peter, like it's not going to stay hidden. Your lie is going to come out eventually. So I think it was well played on her part.
I think so too. And then, from there, she gets this rose. She feels so much better, she says. She just feels validated now. Good for her.
Right?
She goes back. Well, I thought it was an interesting moment when he hands her the rose because you can see her face. She's like, but the girls
She's
knowing,
scared. Yes,
oh,
yes,
she's so scared.
yes.
So
People pleaser.
scared.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And then she goes back and she's like, okay, I'm going to have to tell everybody about this.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to find out anyway. All the girls are already dressed up for this cocktail party that they're shortly thereafter informed is no longer going to be happening. And when asked why, Chris Harrison's like, Peter got the clarity he needed this afternoon. Like, what else could that mean? Who knows if that's even true? But everybody put two and two together and was like, this is Kelsey's fault. And Kelsey also thought it was Kelsey's fault, which I thought was interesting.
Yes, she apologizes for what she did.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like she doesn't have her own back, right? We teach our clients, like, you make a
Yes.
decision and you have your own back all the time. There are no mistakes. You own what happens. It doesn't mean that maybe um, you totally condone what other people do, but you own what happens, right? And so I felt like she didn't really have her own back. She came back and she even said like what she said, and then, so tonight should be smooth sailing, like she says, like a question, like,
Like she's
are you gonna
waiting.
kill me?
Right? She's like, oh my God, the daggers are coming out. Yeah. And she goes on this whole apology tour, which I think is so interesting because in this moment, she's basically mirroring what Peter has done this whole season, which is notice some drama, assume it's his fault. She's assuming it's her fault, and then going around and apologizing for everybody because she thinks that's going to make her feel better. She just needs one person to say, hey, no worries, Kels. Like, this is totally fine. But
Right.
nobody's going to say that because now they have the perfect person to blame
Well, they're victims,
for
right?
this. Totally victims.
They become the victims, and Kelsey is the villain because it's her fault they're not having a cocktail
Right.
party. But what we teach is it's their thoughts about not having a cocktail party. Kelsey can't make Peter do anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's an adult. She can't make him cancel the cocktail party. That was completely Pilot P. Is that what he goes by? Pilot
Pilot
Peter.
Pete. Yeah. It was
Pete
100% him.
dog. Yeah, it was totally him. But now victims love a villain, right?
Yeah.
And Pilot Pete's not going to be the villain. They're making out with him every 5 seconds, all of them, right? It's
Yeah.
like whenever he doesn't know what to say, he like looks at him and just goes in for the kiss.
Yeah.
I'm like, talk, Pete, talk.
Talk. He either goes in for the kiss or he runs away. Those are his two
Or he
options
cancels.
typically. He cancels. I'm done. Yeah, he canceled today. And I think in that moment it was Peter going, okay, if we don't have any sort of group setting, nobody can cause drama and then it'll be
Yeah.
smooth sailing. So he's changing.
Avoidance.
Total
Avoidance.
avoidance, changing the circumstance
Yeah. Which how many of us do that, right? It's
all
human
the
nature
time.
to avoid our feelings. It's so much easier to avoid them.
Totally. And so his clarity that he got was probably more so if I cancel a cocktail
Right.
party, then
Yeah.
there's no drama and I can go to bed.
Yeah.
Essentially, he's just like, this is just the last thing I need to do before I can go to bed tonight and pass out.
Agreed.
Um, totally. And I think, yeah, so that all of the blame turns to Kelsey, but they don't stop there because then they start blaming Tammy because why was Tammy the emotions police?
Right.
And then they move on to McKenna. And so it's really all of these people are looking for some reason, some scapegoat, some person who's the cause for all these terrible emotions that they're having in their body, not realizing that everything that's happening is happening up in their brain. They're having an
And
emotion, and it doesn't mean that something has gone wrong. And I think that's the problem that all of them are having is they think if they feel bad, something has gone terribly wrong, and then they have to go hunt down the cause.
right, right. Which we know our life is going to have negative emotion. It's not meant to be happy all the time, right? And so you're exactly right. They think something has gone wrong and it's panic. And so they drink or they blame others. I think that's a big thing there. The theme of this is they're using and reacting by blaming others. That's where
Yeah,
so much of their time is spent, which I think so many of us can relate. We kind of
totally.
buffer and use blaming other people. That's how we spend our time. That's how we feel a little better as we become the victim. It's not
Yeah.
our fault. So and so made me feel this way. When in reality, we are always in charge of the way we feel. No one can make us feel anything.
Yeah. And that empowerment that they're looking for would come from taking that back for themselves and going, oh, I am feeling doubt because I'm worried about my relationship. And that's what I've been thinking about all day. That's
Yes.
why it has nothing to do with the fact that Peter canceled this cocktail party.
Yes. Yes. And I always like to tell my clients when you're feeling anxious or you're feeling an emotion you don't want to feel, we can always trace it back to your thought, right? Same thing with weight loss clients. When you're
Yes,
feeling an urge or you're feeling something about food, what is your thought?
totally. I mean, that's every
Every time.
conversation I have. It's just sort of, what were you thinking before that? Like, what was going on in your brain? And, sometimes it's easy to get there and go, oh, yeah, I was thinking I wanted that. And it looks really good. But more often than not, it's like, no, but really,
Mm-hmm.
it was my boss sending that email. It was when my husband came home and slammed the door. It's something else. Um, and so it makes sense that when we get that training in life, that this is our go-to, especially on this show. And you're totally right. They can't make Peter the villain, even though if we take a step back, hi, we have one man dating 20 women who has canceled a party. Who is the bad guy here? But nobody
Right.
wants to blame Peter because they're trying to have a relationship with him. And I think there's a sense that if they send any strong negative emotions his way, they'll either be off the show or they won't be able to fall in love with him.
Right. Or
Forgetting
Pete
that. Yeah,
or Peter may send him home. I mean, just like when
totally.
Kelly was kind of calling him out on some stuff, I think we were all like, is she going to go because she did that?
I
You know
know.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So I thought it was brave of her. But yeah, I mean, as
totally
soon as
brave.
they've given all their power away to all the other women. That
Yeah.
feels terrible. Of course they feel terrible. What feels amazing is when you know that you have the power to feel how you want to feel and to take ownership out of I'm totally choosing to feel this way
Yeah.
because of the thoughts I'm thinking. And you can totally do that. You can totally be negative like you said, you can totally be anxious, you can totally have self-doubt, but just know that you're choosing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not caused by somebody else. Yeah, that I know that blew my mind when I first learned that. I was like, "What? I get to choose? This is amazing."
It's amazing. It's so empowering. It's
It's
what
so
everyone's
empowering.
looking for.
Yeah, yeah. And
See,
what they're not finding.
right? Right? Because no one teaches it.
Nobody teaches it. But I do think, I mean, there are some women that we see like emoting a lot of confidence, like Madison has sailed through this show
Where
behind the
did she
scenes.
go? She's like all of a sudden quiet. We haven't seen anything from
I
Madison.
know,
Where is
but
she?
she's very confident. I don't know, during that last scene, she was sitting down, so she
I
was
think
taking a break.
because she's probably not acting like a child, so no one wants to watch an adult.
I know, she's very boring because she's very confident,
Yeah,
so she doesn't
yes,
make for good TV.
right.
Well, let's jump in. I mean, this kind of dovetails nicely into the last scene,
Okay.
which we're still in that last scene. Um, But so Peter has been telling everybody over and over again, you have to trust the process. Just trust the process, as if the process leads us to a spouse. Didn't really happen that streamline of a way for me. I don't know about you.
Nope.
Nope. It's so what's interesting about this is like I don't know that he trusts the process because here he is being told like, okay, you go on date, go on cocktail party, go to rose ceremony, and here he is canceling every other cocktail party, running out of rooms, getting into drama, like doing all the things that were not written into this process. Like the producers have a say in this, but honestly, like most of the stuff he's doing, it seems like it's self-inflicted and definitely not a part of this process.
Right. And I think again it goes back to having his own back. He doesn't
Mm.
have it. Right? He's
No.
not competent in what he decides. And so he's bringing girls back. He's giving girls roses. He's taking roses back. He's sending girls home. He's um, hears something about someone. And so then, like with Kelsey, he heard Tammy told him what was going on. And he had already had a great conversation with Kelsey. And then he goes back and gets Kelsey and sets her down and says, hey, someone told me that you had a mental breakdown.
Right?
Pilot Pete, you don't tell a woman who you're dating, you heard rumor she had a mental breakdown.
No. It's like this is how you break down everything. Like he does this like he's done this at least 3 or 4 times this season
Yeah.
where he's just like, "Oh, hey, like I think he did that to Sydney in front of the whole group. He's just like, "Oh, hey, did you say this thing about Alea? Why don't you tell everybody about it?" And she's just like, "Oh gosh." But I mean, really, like he thinks this is the way to find a wife, but he is not following any of the process himself. I mean, it does remind me a lot of my clients where we're like, hi, here is how you set up an eating protocol. Here's everything that you do. here's what the successful people do. And it works for about 2 weeks. And then, I'll have a call with them a month later. I'll be like, hey, how's it going? It's just like, oh my gosh, I haven't been able to follow anything. And it's just like there is this, at the bottom of it is always this self-doubt
Yeah.
and the insecurity, um, this fear that it's actually not going to work out. And so you fail ahead of time. And I think a part of Pete is doing that, is that he's doing all these things because he's worried he's not actually going to find a wife at the end of all of this. And so he's scrambling and trying to control what he thinks he can control, but ultimately is like leading him down this road of failure.
Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't want to process the emotions that come up when he has his own back and when he sends Alea home the first time and when he has a great conversation with Kelsey. Like he doesn't want to process those emotions. Instead, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Let's bring Alea back. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I'm feeling like I'm not confident in my relationship with Kelsey. Let's bring Kelsey back. He
Yeah.
doesn't, just like your weight loss clients don't want to process their urges of sitting there uncomfortably wanting to eat something
Yeah. Yeah.
and how uncomfortable it is to stay on a protocol.
Well,
And
totally. Well, and I think part of that is too, is that we always think that the plan or the process or the thing is going to be how we're going to get to success. But that's just what's running in the background. Ultimately, it's you having to show up and, like you just said, processing all of those emotions that come up along it. Because, like, like an eating protocol, which is just like another name for, whatever eating plan that you're on or whatnot, is just a framework for you. And essentially, it provides guidelines for you. So, like, okay, if I'm eating 2 or 3 meals a day, if I'm eating anything outside of those meals, well, that's probably in reaction to something.
yeah,
And then you can check in with yourself and say, okay, what feeling am I avoiding here? And
yes.
so,
And
if
be willing to feel the discomfort.
totally,
Right? As soon as Peter feels discomfort, he panics. He brings girls back. And same thing with your clients. Like as soon as they feel discomfort, do they run and grab food or do
totally.
they sit with the discomfort, which feels terrible, by the way?
Yeah, it feels terrible. And that's why most people don't do it. I think there's only like 1 to 2% of people that ever lose weight and keep it off. Um, and
If it was
so
easy, it would be easy,
everybody would
right?
do it. Yeah,
Like,
everyone would do it. Yeah.
yeah, evolving to the next version of yourself is super uncomfortable, but it's the
Mhm.
price that you pay to have to weigh or lose the weight you want to weigh. It's the price you pay to live the life you want to live.
Yeah. Well,
And
and I think it's interesting too, is so Peter is doing all this without awareness, and now he's going to be watching this back and seeing all the things that he's done wrong. I think that that's when he's going to grow maybe into the next version of himself by almost having this TV produced way of getting into a watcher mode, which is how we have our clients become aware. You kind of take a step back and pretend like you're just like, okay, I'm just watching my thoughts as they scroll through my head. I'm watching all my actions I'm doing, giving yourself a little bit of distance so you can have awareness of what you're doing to see if that's how you want to keep doing things or not. And I think being on TV is like the perfect way, if you're open to it, to see what you're
yes,
doing.
right? Because we tell people, and we do it for ourselves. We're like, let's just watch our thoughts go by, almost like a movie. Let's just watch the words and the sentences go by, and let's just
Mhm.
watch it. Become the watcher, like you said, kind of step out of ourselves. And that's what Peter is going to exactly do. He's going to sit on a couch and he's going to watch it all go by. And it is the first step in changing yourself is the awareness part. And he's going to have like the awareness handed on a silver platter to him. It's amazing.
If he's open to it, he may not be willing. He might
Right.
just be like, retreat. We see a lot of evidence of him that that's what he does. He just retreats. He'd have to be willing to stay. He'd have to sit on the couch and go, okay, there's a guy up on the screen that was me 3 months ago who made a lot of decisions. Even if it didn't seem like it at the moment, he did make decisions, even if the decision was to leave the room.
Right.
Do I want to keep being that guy? Or do I maybe want to like learn how to have an emotion and
Right.
process it and like do it that way. Like, I am wondering, like, so you have clients that are probably putting a lot of videos of themselves online, have a lot of anxiety about that, but they kind of have that watcher perspective, kind of like Peter would, or any of these women would, of where they get to see themselves on a screen on the regular basis. Like, does some part of that help them become aware, like
So I
more?
think for the women I work with, that's one of the things that I think being online so much and showing so much of themselves and revealing and things like that really brings them to kind of a spin out of judging themselves and feeling terrible about themselves and what they should be and what so and so is doing. So, people that come to me, it has been something that hasn't really served them. And I teach them how to have it serve them and how teach them the tools and concepts that we know that can help them deal with it and get some relief from their anxiety. But the same thing could be for Peter. I mean, some of these bachelor and bachelorettes, they have all sorts of problems after they leave the show. A lot of them hide out. A lot of them have relationship problems. I followed Michelle Money for a long time. I mean, she was made the villain for years, and
Yeah.
it drove her to all sorts of things. I mean, she just couldn't get past it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what these tools and concepts come to save the day. It's like the secret sauce.
so like if somebody was like, let's just say after this, I'm listening back to this podcast and like super self-judgy, whatever, on myself. Like what would be like the one thing that you would tell me?
You were super judgy about this and just
Yeah,
beating
of
yourself
me, of
up, of
myself.
yourself. The first thing I would do is I would have you work on the relationship with yourself. Like, why? Why is that where your brain is going about yourself? I mean, it could just as easily go somewhere positive and I look beautiful and my voice is amazing and I'm so smart and I'm so educated. Why is it going to the self critic? Why is your inner bully beating yourself up for everything you did when you see yourself? So that would be the first thing we would do is what is your relationship with yourself? What do you think about yourself? And then we would go from there
Yeah.
because that's super revealing.
Yeah, that is super revealing. I know. I'm thinking about like, yes, that would be useful for me. I know it would definitely be useful for anybody listening to this. Definitely for the people on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it would be so helpful for them to get in their own heads. What do they think about themselves and why?
Yeah. But from a curious place, not like a you screwed up. Yeah. Like which a lot of us go to right away. It's like go to is just this is terrible what you just did.
Absolutely. That's what I think causes so much of the anxious feelings that we have is especially high achievers and successful people, they achieve and they do kind of out of self-loathing. They do it to love themselves, not because they love themselves. So you're
Mm.
exactly right. Like if we can get to the space where we just look at everything with curiosity and compassion, like you would treat your best friend, that's when we really start to uncover and reveal where those beliefs come from and why we have them. And that's where you get a little wiggle room and are able to move forward and evolve to where you really want to be, not where you are.
Yeah, that's super useful because I know a lot of people won't even listen back to something or watch something or look at their whatever that they've put out there because of they're afraid of having that mirror held up of what their relationship looks like with themselves.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's hard work. It's a lot of work. And I tell my clients sometimes they get off the phone and they're like, I feel worse. I feel like, and I'm like, welcome to evolving. It's
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And the people, if we want to get there, we have to be willing to feel that discomfort and to feel all those things.
Yeah. And that's where we just see Peter trip up over and over and over again. Like he's like at the edge of his comfort zone, trying to push out of it, trying to go to the next level. But it's just like he keeps kind of stepping back into this habitual habit of being himself, which
Yeah.
is somebody who runs and hides or people pleases or, does things that so many of us do
Yeah,
that we
it's
see
hard
played on the
work.
screen. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right. And it's human nature. I think for a lot of us, that's how we're just wired.
Oh,
Right.
totally. Yeah. And just like when somebody's upset with you, expressing upset with you, you want to make it better. You're going to give them a rose, even if it's not eventually what you want. You don't want this person to be your wife, but you know that in that moment, that's going to make them feel good. That's intoxicating,
Yeah.
you
And trying
know?
to control how they feel, right? Like he's
Mhm.
controlling by giving the rose that they feel good now.
Yeah. And so it's just something that like we kind of see him working through a little bit inch by inch. Like I have noticed him being a little bit more decisive.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, it's like rough around the edges, but there is more of a decisiveness. He is coming around a little bit. I'm still rooting for him. I'm still rooting for Peter to find his
Come
wife. We'll
on,
see what
Pilot
happens.
Pete.
You could do it.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Oh.
It's fun to watch him, like you said, kind of evolve on the show.
Totally. And all of them, the ones
Mhm.
that get to stay, evolve a little bit. So,
Right.
all right. Well, that's 5 moments, Kristen.
Awesome. Thanks so much
Awesome.
for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. If somebody wanted to find you, where would they go looking for you online?
KristenMCoaching.com, and my Instagram handle is the same, Kristen M Coaching.
Awesome. Well, I will have that in the show notes, lynngrogan.com/episode 4. And as a reminder, hop over to my Instagram at Lynn Grogan if you want to help pick the moments for next week's show. That will be episode 7. Since we had 2 episodes this week, we'll skip forward to that one. So, all right, Kristen. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn.
Yay.